Hi, all. I wanted to focus here just on the diencephalon, which consists of the thalamus, the hypothalamus, and then the epithalamus. So I thought it would be most beneficial to maybe show it here on this graphic. So a couple of things I want to highlight first of all. So this right here is the lateral ventricle. What I've highlighted here is the third ventricle. You kind of see how it actually encapsulates the thalamus. And then coming down, you have the cerebral aqueduct. So literally this duct for fluids that's going to carry that cerebral spinal fluid all the way down to the fourth ventricle. So don't forget these ventricles are continuous with one another. And it also carries fluid into that subarachnoid space as well. So from all the way from the subarachnoid space down into the central canal of the spinal cord. So cerebral spinal fluid is going to be continuous all throughout here. So lateral ventricles, third ventricle, cerebral aqueduct, fourth ventricle, and then down into that central canal of the spinal cord. What I've highlighted here is the thalamus. So if you look at a still picture from the sagittal plane, the thalamus doesn't look very large. So I wanted to give you an appreciation for the size of this structure. So there's the right side, there's the left side here. I'll try to zoom in so you can better appreciate how it's distributed in the brain. A nice way to think about the thalamus is as a relay center for sensory information. So it's going to be able to sort, edit, and really relay all the sensory input coming up ascending or afferent fibers. It will route that to the appropriate parts of the cortex. An exception to that is your sense of smell, which actually is not routed through the thalamus at all. Sometimes the thalamus is considered the inner room. It makes up a huge portion of the diencephalon, about 80%. What I'd like to show here, so I just made visible some of the nuclei within this thalamus. And remember, nuclei are bundles of cell bodies in the central nervous system. And so each of those are going to play specific functions. If you look here, you can also just make out part of the epithalamus. And so one of the most important functional pieces of the epithalamus is the pineal gland. I have better views of this that I'll show you in the PowerPoints, but that pineal gland is going to sit right here, just superior to the corpora quadrigemina. And it's going to play a key role in releasing melatonin and, as a consequence, regulating sleep. So here I'm highlighting the hypothalamus. So again, thalamus, third ventricle through here, and then this is the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus, given its small size, it's really astounding all of the critical functions that it plays. It is absolutely essential to homeostasis in our body. Which is going to include body temperature, blood pressure regulation. We also see that the hypothalamus is going to coordinate autonomic functions, so those functions that are involuntary, and that's going to include functions such as coordinating blood pressure, heart rate, your breathing rate, hunger, and thirst is also going to be regulated to some extent here, as is libido or sex drive. So many critical functions of the hypothalamus. You have the pituitary gland here. So the pituitary gland is a critical endocrine gland. You're going to have everything from growth hormone to oxytocin, antidiuretic hormone, follicular stimulating hormone. So many key hormones are going to be released from that pituitary. And those hormones are ultimately going to either be produced or regulated by the hypothalamus. If you look here, I've done the same thing I did for the thalamus. I really wanted to show you some of the key nuclei that reside within the hypothalamus. So each of these nuclei, again, are going to play different functions. The one that I have highlighted here, I think, is particularly neat. This is the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It's going to play a key role in circadian rhythms. we find that there are a lot of melatonin receptors in this particular region, and that helps to explain how the hypothalamus can play a role also in working to regulate sleep to some extent. So, coming back to its role with the endocrine system, what we see here that I wanted to highlight. So, this is the pituitary gland. This is what's called the infundibulum. So, this is a stalk that connects the pituitary gland to the hypothalamus. This stalk is divided into one side that is predominantly neural, and then another side that's predominantly a blood supply or portals that are going to connect the anterior pituitary to the hypothalamus. But that infundibulum is an important anatomical structure connecting the hypothalamus and all of its various nuclei to the pituitary gland. One other nucleus that I want to point out is the mammillary body. And so the mammillary body, while we don't have a crystal clear sense for its function, we know that it plays a role in memory. One of the reasons that we suspect this is because we see atrophy in the mammillary bodies in individuals who've had Alzheimer's, also in individuals who have Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. So essentially a thiamine deficiency, oftentimes linked to alcoholism. And so that's going to be the mammillary body there. And it's just this nuclei that really drops down just posterior to the hypothalamus. And this is a nice view of the mammillary body there, just panning back out to give you an appreciation for how it's connected to the hypothalamus. And those are really the main things that I wanted to show you. Again, just focusing on the diencephalon here, the role of the thalamus, the hypothalamus, as well as the epithalamus, which again consists of the pineal gland. And I'll save discussion around the brainstem for a different video. Thanks, guys.